In a world where luck meets skill, one man discovered a secret that casinos never wanted revealed. This is the story of Tommy Glenn Carmichael, the locksmith who beat Las Vegas. Tommy Glenn Carmichael fixed locks for a living, but somehow he could never unlock the light he actually wanted for himself. He was 35, broke, raising 2 kids, and quietly realizing the American dream wasn't really designed for people like him. He could repair anything with his hand, except his bank account, stress, or the future he kept worrying about. Bills covered his kitchen table like unpaid reminders that skill alone doesn't always protect you from reality. Then one phone call casually introduced a dangerous idea that would quietly change everything about his life. His friend Ray asked him if he'd ever been to Las Vegas.
You ever been to Vegas?
Can't afford it.
What if I told you there's a way to make money there, using your skills?
And Tommy laughed like the idea was a joke. Ray explained that slot machines weren't magic, they were just machines waiting for someone to understand them better. And when machines are built by humans, they always come with mistakes hidden inside their design. Ray pulled out a thin piece of metal that honestly looked more like trash than a casino-breaking invention. He said that tiny piece of metal could make slot machines believe they were winning when they weren't. Tommy immediately said the obvious thing, that it was illegal, and Ray immediately said the obvious response. Ray smiled and said it was only illegal if someone decided to pay attention, which casinos rarely did back then. Tommy checked his bank account later that night and realized attention was the least of his financial problems. With barely $200 left, he finally agreed to learn something he probably shouldn't have learned. February 1980, Tommy walked into a Las Vegas casino feeling nervous, curious, and slightly irresponsible. He watched Ray calmly work the machine like it was just another boring routine he had mastered already. Quarter in, tool in, pull the lever, and suddenly the machine started paying like it felt guilty. $200 from $1 made Tommy question everything he believed about luck and fairness. Now it was Tommy's turn to test whether desperation could really turn into opportunity that fast. He pulled the lever, watched the reel stop, and felt his future quietly shift without making any noise. Tommy walked away from that machine knowing he'd just crossed a line he would never completely walk back from again. By midnight, he had more cash in his pocket than he normally earned in 2 stressful weeks at work. Driving back home, he didn't even turn the radio on because his thoughts were louder than any music. He realized he didn't just learn a trick, he learned a new way to survive inside a broken system. Tommy started buying old slot machines and tearing them apart like puzzles that owed him money. He studied every gear, lever, spring, and sensor until the machine started feeling predictable instead of mysterious. Then he built a better tool, thinner, faster, and more precise than the one Ray originally showed him. The success rate climbed so high that Tommy finally trusted the math more than the luck. He created strict rules to protect himself because he knew greed was the fastest way to get caught. Never hit the same casino twice, never win too much, and always look like a bored tourist. For a while, everything worked perfectly, and Tommy started believing he had beaten the game permanently. Then casinos upgraded their machines, and his favorite little tool suddenly became completely useless overnight. Most people would have quit, but Tommy treated failure like an invitation to build something better. He discovered a hidden switch inside the machines that could be triggered manually with enough patience. So he built a new tool out of guitar string and stubborn confidence and called it the monkey paw. It required skill, patience, and calm hands, which honestly described Tommy better than his job title ever did. After weeks of practice, the machine finally paid him like it had personally betrayed itself. Money started arriving faster, and life slowly started looking less stressful than it used to. New car, better house, and schools that suddenly didn't feel impossible anymore for his kids. Tommy told his wife he was consulting, which was Technically not a lie, just extremely incomplete. For a while, Tommy believed he'd finally outsmarted the system that spent years reminding him he was replaceable. Then one casino guard noticed his hand moving where no normal player ever needed to touch. Tommy was arrested in public, and embarrassment suddenly replaced every confident thought he had left. He served time, lost his freedom, and promised himself he would never be careless again. Most people would quit after jail, but Tommy returned home thinking only about improvement. Casinos replaced mechanical switches with light sensors, and Tommy immediately saw another weakness forming. He wondered what would happen if a machine simply couldn't see the coins anymore. So he built a tiny light device that could blind the sensor without damaging anything at all. The first test paid him hundreds in seconds, and Tommy realized he'd just unlocked another dangerous door. This new tool worked almost everywhere, and casinos unknowingly welcomed him back without hesitation. Tommy traveled constantly, collecting money like the machines were apologizing for ever doubting him. He didn't dress rich, act rich, or look rich, because attention was the only thing he feared. By the mid-90s, he had quietly taken millions without anyone truly understanding how. Casinos finally noticed patterns that math could no longer explain away politely. An investigator compared payout records and realized something human was hiding inside the numbers. The FBI opened an investigation and gave it a name that sounded much scarier than it looked. They followed players, compared footage, and one familiar name kept returning like a ghost. Tommy Glenn Carmichael was no longer invisible, even though he still believed he was. Agents watched him lose, then suddenly win exactly when his hands moved carefully. And for the first time in years, Tommy wasn't controlling the story anymore. Tommy didn't know it yet, but every step he took inside that casino was already being carefully documented. He played normally, lost a little, smiled politely, and waited patiently for the moment to finish his routine. When the machine paid, his hand moved exactly the way the cameras had learned to recognize. The light wand did its job perfectly, but so did the people finally watching him. Before he could leave, two calm voices said his full name with no emotion at all. In that moment, Tommy already knew this story was officially ending its longest chapter. They searched his pockets, found the device, and confirmed everything they had quietly suspected for years. 17 charges, decades of potential prison time, and no clever tool left to save him. But Tommy still had one last move, and this time, it wasn't mechanical. He offered them knowledge instead of resistance, and surprisingly, they decided to listen. Every device, every method, every weakness, he explained them all without hiding anything. In exchange, he walked away free, while the machines he once beat finally learned his secrets. The casinos he robbed now paid him to protect themselves from people exactly like him. He didn't beat Las Vegas by stealing forever, he beat it by teaching it how he did. He spent his life breaking locks, until he finally learned which side of the door he wanted to stand on.